my name is Krista Coratelli, and today we are going to look at how to create change by using the Trans-Theoretical Model of Change, TTM, and motivational interviewing. We are first going to introduce the Trans-Theoretical Model of Change. We are going to, and its purpose for guided change. Second, we're going to introduce motivational interviewing and the change it promotes. Finally, we're going to look at how motivational interviewing works within the parameters of the TTM model of change and to ensure a supportive place where change can take place. So you can see over here that the picture is the TTM model, and it kind of follows the steps down here with the stages of change, and this kind of represents the motivational interviewing. So moving on to the introducing the Trans-Theoretical Model of Change can help assist future nutritional professionals to determine whether the client is in the stages of change. Now, the stage of change is the first of the four central concepts of the TTM's model, and you can see on here that they begin with pre-contemplation under the stages of change, where the client has not even considered change. The second stage is the contemplation stage, where the client is now willing to consider change. The third stage is preparation, where the client plans to change behavior. Action is the fourth stage, where the client puts that plan into motion. And the last stage of change is maintenance, where the client sustains the desired behavior. Continuing on with the central concepts. The second concept is the process of change. This refers to the actions of the client that will either move them towards or away from their goal, which is represented by this little sign here. It says changes next exit, so we can decide if we're actually going to willingly change or we're going to keep on going forward. Next, we're going to look at self-efficacy, which suggests the client has the ability to change. And third is the pros and cons of the decision balance, which helps them decide what they need to do in these stages of change. In addition to the concept, the idea that clients move through the stages of change while working through change. The client can move forward or backwards in these stages. And it is our goal as future nutritional professionals to help the client continue forward through the stages of change. Okay, so I really like this picture. Kind of, to me, introduces the actual, kind of spirit of motivational interviewing, which is change is a process, not an event. And it kind of seems, like kind of not casual, but somewhat casual. People walking on the beach sounds very relaxing and very motivating to me, especially in Idaho when it's raining and all that. So there are four components to the spirit of motivation. These are compassion, collaboration, evocation, acceptance. You may be interested to note that compassion is first. That's because without compassion, we won't be able to understand our client. Collaboration means we need to work with our clients to establish the goals and create plans for change. Evoking the client's own strengths will be another key that is needed to provide the tools that the client needs to move forward. And finally, acceptance of the client and their place of change will be essential for their and our success. It requires us as future nutritional professionals to listen for our clients' change talk, which will indicate their level of ambivalence. Ambivalence is what we're working towards decreasing. We're looking to increase motivation when they're ready. As a nutritional professional, we need to work with the client to identify the depth of that change. To identify the level of ambivalence, we need to ask open-ended questions and use these core skills you can see over here, the affirmations, the reflections, and the summaries, to promote change talk. Okay? When the client begins to realize that they have the power to change, their speech also changes. That's called that change talk. And at this point, you may have been thinking that the TTM model and the MI model actually work very well together. In fact, the TTM is heavily, it flows really, really well together. So this picture is very interesting. I found it when I was looking at the, when I was typing there is no manipulation in MI. This says, what fits your busy schedule better, exercising 1 hour a day or being dead 24 hours a day? Now, this is a pretty common technique. I've used it before in personal training, and at least for me, it did not work at all. So I am not very manipulative, I hope. And yeah, I didn't really enjoy it. So interesting enough, MI is not a counseling theory, and therefore the MI and TTM actually work pretty good together. They can use together, they can determine the level of readiness of a client's desire to change, and it uses the stages of change as steps to kind of guide that path along. Some forward and backward movement should be expected in this model, and as future nutritional professionals, we can use the MI to prevent the oversimplification of any backward movement. And it will show, by doing this, we'll show that we're there for them and ready for any perceived setbacks. It also prevents the stages of change from being a bunch of boxes that will get checked off as the client moves through them, and it'll create a series of fluid learning steps that will change whatever direction and challenge that we face together with our clients. Okay, so we're going to work together to promote change. Incorporating MI into the stages of change in the TTM model provides clarity to the stages of change. For example, in pre-contemplation, the future hasn't even considered change. However, if we use MI, we can help them become open to the opportunity that change does exist, and they're capable of it. Once we get in the contemplation stage, over here, you can see it right here. We're going to examine the history of the patient and discuss how to move forward from there. Here it's important to ask those open-ended questions and use those ORs like we were talking about before. Once the preparation stage is reached, we can work together to create a solid plan so they don't feel like they're alone. And in the preparation stage, that's where we'll be at. So on the next slide, we have somebody helping another person up, and that's an example of motivational interviewing and social support. We're going to evoke the change that the client needs and add personal boosts of confidence to help keep them moving forward. However, we do need to respect the fact that this is their journey, and if they're not feeling comfortable, it's okay to remind them it's okay to slow down, and we're part of their support group, and we were there for them, and so we're going to help lift them up when they need it. In the action stage of change, the client should be well on their way to progress. However, it's important to remember for us that they need to slow down, back off. We should respect this, and we can help them remember at this point their motivations for changing, and so that might help move them on to the maintenance stage. And this is where we got to make sure that we don't fall off the bandwagon. As future nutritionists, there will be cases and clients and life that happens for us, so we need to make sure that nobody falls through the cracks in this maintenance stage. We also need to make sure the client's social environment, their support system here, is on par for the shift from a counseling session or a counseling setting to a real-world scenario to prevent any relapses. If there's a relapse that does happen, we need to use MI to ensure the client feels well enough to ensure the client feels comfortable with returning to us for aid, because they might actually see this as a failure, and it's just reality. Ultimately, the client will determine the level of change, and that's the whole point of MI. Okay. Oh, come on. There we go. That didn't work a second ago. Okay. As future nutritional professionals, it is imperative that we use every tool available to assist those who are in the stage of change. By combining the models for change and MI and TTM, we can provide the counseling and confidence our clients will need to successfully change. And you can see this little guy carrying his little piece of evoked emotions. I'm going to put it in there in his little puzzle and reach his goal. So thank you, and here are my references on the next page. Here we go.